Jaya Prajanaranjana Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Prajanaranjana Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nithai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nithai Gaura Hari Bol Nithai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nithai Gaura Hari Bol हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्रीमद् भागवतम पाठ की जय नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रसाद श्रीमद् भक्ति स्वामी कृष्ण चैतन्य Krishna. Hare Krishna, all of you. So, this is a wonderful chapter where Narada gives instructions to Srimad Bhagavatam for Srila Vyasadeva. Two great personalities being discussed here. One is Narada Muni, who is Deva Rishi, and he is the Rishi or the sage for all the Devatas. That is the exalted position of Narada Muni. And then we have Srila Vyasadeva, who is the composer of all the scriptures, and he's also the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but sets a great example of what a disciple is supposed to be like and what are the qualifications of a disciple. Or in short, any student of Krishna consciousness, what kind of mood he must carry. So in spite of having composed such wonderful literatures, dividing the one Veda into four Vedas, and then writing the Vedanta Sutras, writing the Upanishads, and writing the Mahabharata, which contains the Bhagavad Gita also, the 700 important slokas of the Bhagavad Gita, he still was in a reflective mood and not in a mood of pride that I have become the greatest composer of literature in the entire planet, which he is. Still takes a very humble mood and is very reflective and tries to think about what is the cause for his dissatisfaction. Humility is one of the very, very important qualities to invoke the mercy of spiritual master and the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when the very reflective mood was seen by his Guru Maharaj, Srila Narada Muni, he comes to the cottage of Vyasadeva, and as we saw in the beginning of this chapter, he just sat in front of Vyasadeva in his cottage. He smiled and addressed Vyasadeva. So actually, humility is the greatest garment or the ornament that we can wear, which attracts mercy. And we have heard many popular statements as to how one can make progress in spiritual life through the process of jnana, through the process of karma, through the process of dhyana, through the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So many processes are being described. But what really is the process, whatever the process you may follow, first of all, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita as well as Bhagavatam establishes that bhakti is the best process for spiritual realization. But yes, bhakti is best. We have got a technical understanding of that aspect, and pretty much most of us are accepting the fact that bhakti is the best method. But the most important ingredient for the practice of bhakti is the aspect of humble service to the spiritual master. So service mood and humility go hand in hand. Like in the 4th chapter, Krishna explains, Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnanina tattva darshinaha. The spiritual master is a tattva darshi, and he is able to give us knowledge required for self-realization. But what is the disciple's mood for that? Tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. First is he should ask in a very humble, submissive mood questions related to spiritual advancement, and also parallelly engage in the aspect of seva or service to the spiritual master and to the devotees of the Lord. So that is a very, very important ingredient. And that is really the purpose of the scripture Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Bhagavad Gita gives us a technical understanding of the fact that there are many processes which can help you to a state of spiritual perfection, and it establishes the fact that bhakti is the best method. But the performance of bhakti is best understood through the saints and sages who are practitioners of this bhakti process. So whenever we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not just the technical understanding that becomes very important, but it is the aspect of noticing and recognizing the mood with which people have practiced bhakti. So here the Vyasadeva has composed everything that is possible and not possible for anybody in future or never done in the past to compose this kind of literature. So he is the literary incarnation of the Lord, but accepts a very humble position with his guru, and that motivates the guru to give him instructions. Thanks to the humble disposition of Srila Vyasadeva, all of us are recipients of this holiest of holy scripture Srila Vyasadeva has composed, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam, explained to us through his son Sukadev Goswami and Suta Goswami, who also attended the discourse on Srimad Bhagavatam in the assembly of great sages by Srila Sukadev Goswami. So it is the humble nature of a devotee which has given us also mercy. So if we have to perfect ourselves in the knowledge of bhakti, then we have to follow in the footsteps of the practitioners of bhakti, like Srila Vyasadeva and others in the line, and as explained by the practitioners and experts like Srila Narada Muni. So when Narada Muni kind of observed the mood of his disciple Srila Vyasadeva, he sat, smiled, and addressed Srila Vyasadeva and asked him pertinent questions, which led to Srila Vyasadeva admitting that he is dissatisfied. And then he admits that in a very humble mood. And he also says that, "O Narada Muni, you are like the sun, you travel everywhere, and like the air, you penetrate the internal region of everyone. You are like the all-pervasive super soul. Please find the deficiency in me." So this is, it can't get better, the mood of submission to spiritual master. So he is requesting Narada Muni to advise him on what his deficiencies are. So therefore, Narada Muni starts revealing to Srila Vyasadeva the importance of discussing the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna's pastimes or leelas. What is the importance? So that is the section in which we are, which starts from sloka number 8 until sloka number 22. This is the real discussion that is going on. So like we saw in the last class, first is the diagnosis of the problem was done by Srila Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva promptly gives the diagnosis of the problem by saying that there are two defects in your composition. The first defect is the insufficient broadcasting of the Supreme Lord's glories. So meaning insufficient broadcasting of Krishna Leela and discussions about direct discussions of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And then he points out the second defect, which is there has been too much of emphasis on the four Purusharthas, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So it's a fact that if you progressively see in a logical way that if you do the follow the right aspects of religiosity, which is dharma, then all your material desires are satisfied, which is kama. And then what is the material artha? Sorry, artha is economic development takes place, dharma, artha, and then all the material desires are satisfied. So technically, there is a gradual progression by following the rules of dharma, which is leading to artha or economic development, and then leading to satisfaction of material desires, which is kama. And finally, you say, I'm done with all this, and let me now focus on liberation. So it seems like a very logical flow that one will come to a point of liberation or seeking liberation, uh, um, which is freedom from material desires. So there are two aspects to this liberation itself. Freedom from material desires can also mean that you want to get out of this cycle of continuous seeking of material desires and facing frustrations and enjoyments from time to time and seeking liberation from the material desires. So that is one aspect which we have seen. But the another aspect and perspective is that the devotee of the Lord does not even seek liberation. He simply wants to serve the Lord eternally, and that gives him and puts him in a state of complete ananda or bliss of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal platform, in his eternal planet, or anywhere. He doesn't mind coming back to the material world if that is the service which the Supreme Lord desires of the devotee. So anyway, though it seems like a logical step of the four Purusharthas of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, but the trouble is that one may get too much lost in pursuit of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, and may forget the supreme object of human life or the purpose of human life, which is Prema Pumartho Mahan. So the real object of human life or the ultimate object of human life is Krishna Prema or Bhakti to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That may get completely diverted, keep our attention completely diverted. And then these two verses we will read again, and then sorry for giving such a long introduction, which is, I think, a quality which I have got from my spiritual master, because many times he used to tell me that today we will speak on this topic, so take this book. So take this canto of the Bhagavatam, or take the Madhya Leela, so and so sloka I want to speak on, or one of the famous scripture he loves to speak on is Brihad Bhagavatamritam. So I take the book, whatever he says, but then when he sits down to give a class, if it's a 1 hour class, he gives like a 45-minute introduction to the topic, leaving him with just 10 or 15 minutes for the topic he meant to speak on. Anyway, that has always been insightful for all of us when we listen to his class, because the introduction to the topic sets the mood for proper understanding of the topic itself. Like we see in sloka number 10 and 11, we'll just read it again. Sloka number 10 is, basically there are two kinds of literature. One is the materialistic literature, and one is the spiritual or the transcendental literature. there is discussion on the place these two types of literatures occupy. So the sloka number 10 says, Nayatvachas chitrapadam hare yasho jagat pavitram pragnita karhichit tatvayasam tirtamusanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramanti usikshaya. Okay. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the entire universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a pilgrimage, place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So, very strong words used for materialistic literature. It might be the best grammatical presentation of the subject matter, very poetically described by the author of the presentation. But then, if it is not discussing, it might be artistic, it might be poetic literature, it might be a work of art, but if it does not glorify the Supreme Lord, there is no use of that kind of literature. So, and it is a place of pilgrimage for crows. Where crows, generally, we know that they live in very, very dirty surroundings. So, it is as good as a pilgrimage place for crows. So, that is the diktat of the Bhagavatam on any kind of materialistic literature. Bhagavatam is always very strong. It is the sweetest literature. At the same time, it is indeed a very strong literature because it is a postgraduate course in spiritual life. So therefore, it can contain very strong instructions which should be understood in the proper perspective. Yeah. And then in the very next verse, there is discussion on transcendental literature or spiritual literature. What is transcendental literature? That literature which paves the way for transcending the three modes of material nature, that we have to go beyond Tamagun, Rajagun, and Sattvagun. And that is possible only through study of transcendental literature from the lips of a transcendental speaker of the literature and from the books composed by a transcendentalist person, which transcendentalist means a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in sloka number 11, it is mentioned Tatvag Visargo Janathaga Viplavo Yasmin Prati Slokam Abattavatyapi Namani Anantasya Yasho Ankitani Yat Shranvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. On the other hand, the literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, form, pastimes, fame, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. So that is a phenomenal translation by Srila Prabhupada, that transcendental literature, we discussed about the technical aspects of how it has to be above the three modes of material nature, etc., etc. But here is what a transcendental literature should be able to do. It should bring about a revolution in our heart. And to cause that revolution, we'll go back to the two important things which we spoke about some time back, is that it has to be spoken by a pure devotee of the Lord, and it has to be spoken by a devotee who comes in the authorized parampara. It is coming from an authorized parampara and the purity of the devotion of the speaker, which will help us to create a revolution in the heart of a devotee. So I really loved this translation of Srila Prabhupada, that literature should be able to, um, transcendental literature only is capable of bringing about a revolution in our lives, which means that there has to be a shift in consciousness. There has to be a shift in our activities, and there has to be a shift in the ultimate objective of life which we are pursuing. Otherwise, we are also engaged in animalistic ways of life, which have the capacity to give you better ways of eating, better ways of sleeping, better ways of mating, and better ways of defending, which is not the ultimate objective of life. So the whole world is misdirected, as mentioned in this sloka. Misdirected meaning everybody is functioning on the bodily platform of life, whereas the basic understanding, the first level of understanding for spiritual life begins with at least accepting the fact that I am spirit soul, I am not this body. Now he tells something else about this in this sloka also. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So even if those literatures are, imperfectly composed, even then it has got the potency to bring about a revolution in the lives of people. So this is where you'll start last time, and then Narada Muni explains to gives further instructions on how bhakti is the only asset that you have to seek for. Bhakti is the only asset, and it is the most valuable asset as well. So in the next verse number 12, we will start reading with the translation. Verse number 12, knowledge of self-realization, even though free from material affinity, does not look well if devoid of the conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So here the materialistic literature and the flowery mundane language that is used, flowery words, but yet it is mundane, where there is no knowledge of self-realization, there is no knowledge of the Brahman, and even if there is knowledge of the Brahman, he goes one step further. Discussions on Brahman, the impersonal feature of the Lord, though it is uncontaminated by matter, is also being criticized. Not just materialistic literature, but discussions on even spiritual topics is criticized here if it is absent of the discussions on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is being discussed here in this verse. So verse number 13. Verse number 13 is We'll read the sloka. Ato mahabhaga bhavan amogadrik suchi shrava satya rato drida vrataha uru kramas yakila bhanda muktaye samadhina nusmara tadvicheshtitam. O
Oh,
Vyasadev.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Sorry, sorry. Rao Prabhuji, can you share the screen, please?
Yeah, we are on verse number 13, Rao Garu.
Rao, you are there?
Okay. Okay, so I'll just read the translation. By that time, Rao can try to share the screen. So, O Vyasadev, your vision is completely perfect. Your good deed is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. What a big tribute. Um, Two things come out from this. What a big tribute the disciple is getting from his spiritual master. And then what a big glory of Guru is being also described here, where the Guru is wholeheartedly appreciating on the spiritual progress of the devotee, which is also important. So, great Guru and a great disciple. Now, everybody understands that Srila Vyasadeva is the, he is the literary potency of the Lord. So therefore, as a guru also, he acknowledges the potency of his disciple and uses such wonderful words. It's like a father in the younger days of his life, he keeps instructing his son and takes an upper platform. But over a period of time, when the child starts wearing the same size of shoes, then he puts his arms around his shoulder. It's not as though the respect has become little lesser from the son's side, but the father, who in this case we are talking about the guru, understand that his son is now a matured person and therefore gives him a platform of equality with his son, and, or in this case, the disciple, and glorifies him with the wonderful qualities that he mentions about his disciple Srila Vyasadeva. He calls him a Mahabhaga, which means that you are the most fortunate person. And then you're also Amogadrik. Amogadrik means you are a person with perfect vision. You're also Suchi Shrava. You have spotless fame. Yeah. So he is very, very generous in giving appreciation to his disciple, which is also something which we have to learn when we become gurus tomorrow. And then Suchi Shrava, a person with spotless fame. And then Satya Ratho, that you're always truthful. Ratha means chariot. So you always ride on the chariot of Satya or truth. And then you're also Dridhavrata, you're firm in your faith. And then Akila Bandha Muktaye, you work for the liberation of all conditioned souls. So, what is the intent of glorifying him? With such wonderful qualities, you should do something better than writing and composing whatever you have done. Like in the seventh chapter, fourth verse, it's mentioned Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak pramihite male apasyat purusham purnam mayam chatad apashrayam. So you have to fix your mind on the process of bhakti yoga without any tinge of materialism. And at that level, you will be able to see the supreme absolute truth. With all the external energy of the Supreme Lord, which is, all the tinge of Maya is completely under the control. And this is the right medicine that you should have given. Because what is the nature of bhakti itself? Anartho pasamam saksat bhakti yogam adoksaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. So all the material miseries are actually superfluous. Why are we having the consciousness that we are having so much of misery in our lives, material miseries? That is because we are still not able to recognize, understand, and realize that we are not this body, we are spirit, soul. All the suffering that we are going through is because of the materialistic nature of ours, that we go through this suffering. So the bhakti yoga, or the process of bhakti yoga, is able to mitigate all these materialistic endeavors of ours and the miseries that the material endeavors give us. And he says, Lokasya janato vidvams. The people, the mass of the people do not understand, and therefore Chakre Satvata Samhitam, people are in the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, Vyasadeva, he is suggesting to Vyasadeva that he should compile a literature which is describing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while acknowledging that Vyasadeva is most qualified for this job. So that is the 13th sloka. So Vyasadeva is being appreciated by the Guru, but he also says that you could have done much better. No harm, do it now, compose a literature which is describing the glories and the leelas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what is the reason for that? We'll read the translation of sloka number 14. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates the boat which has no resting place. So, what is the whole world, as we said sometime before, functions on what's in it for me. So, through the process of dharma, which is religious activities, or any work which is related to religiosity, need not necessarily be spiritual, which promotes the aspect of dharma, artha, which is economic development, and kama, which is satisfaction of material desires. Any work like this, I said something a little while ago, need not necessarily be spiritual. Actually, they are not spiritual, would have been a better way to say, because it's all being done with the motive of what's in it for me. I need Vedic delights in heaven. I want to enjoy in the Nandakanan forest, in the Nandakanan gardens of heaven. I want a beautiful life. I want a fantastic position. I want to occupy the place of Indra, and I want fame, and I want prestige. In all these pursuits, the mind is completely agitated and gets carried away and we are in a state of being very puzzled in the subject matter of spiritual life, and puzzled, or we can say completely distracted from our spiritual life. So in Karma Kanda also we pray to demigods, and we should understand that the demigods also are not on the spiritual platform yet. So therefore, there is a serious limitation on how much spiritual benefit we can get by praying even to the demigods or the devatas. So, so that is the idea. So in sloka number 15, the idea of enjoyment is against the idea of renouncing is being introduced. So spiritual pursuit is something different. So the sloka number 15, what does it say? Jugupsitam dharma krite anushasataha swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikrama yadvakyato adharma ithara stito namanyate tasya nivaranam janaha. Those people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. So he's continuing to point out the defects of Srila Vyasadev's fantastic composition of literature. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. Oh, this is so much connected to the truth that we see around us. So whenever we see somebody performing some activities, we say, no, but don't you think it's better to do it like this? Do it like this, and why don't you progress in the path of bhakti? Immediately we get the answer, no, we are doing what is mentioned in this Shastra. We are doing what is mentioned in this Purana. We are doing what is mentioned in this Veda, the Rig Veda, or this Veda, or that Veda. So it gives a kind of a license for the activity that you are doing. And therefore, the person who is doing this activity, no doubt it cannot be considered as wrong because he has chosen the path of leading a life through the diktats of the scripture. So it is not wrong, he is legally right. So, but the objective is illegal. What is the objective? Objective is sense gratification, and objective is getting results for personal sense enjoyment. Whenever the objective is personal sense enjoyment, then it becomes an illegal activity, though the process can be considered as legal because it is as per the scriptures. But the results are illegal. Why? Because we are seeing ourselves as separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what is spiritual progress? Spiritual progress is keeping the Lord at the center of all our activities and functioning just for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the idea of sense enjoyment, which is for the self, is against the idea of renouncing and the path of spiritual growth itself. So, subsequently, what will happen through this process, you will keep on finding and studying the scriptural details. to practice other things for increasing his sense enjoyment. So he will start quoting, as mentioned in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, that he will say in the name of religion, sacrificing animals is also part of the yajna. So therefore, he doesn't get any kind of interest in following the regulative principles, but he just reads the scriptures from the perspective of increasing his personal sense enjoyment. Slowly, the regulative principle starts getting disturbed. So the pillars of spiritual advancement, or the basics necessary for spiritual advancement, is recommended by Srila Prabhupada, the four regulative principles which we all try and follow, which is no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication, which are the basically these four things are actually the pillars for increase in materialism. Meat eating, gambling, the illicit sex and intoxication are the very pillars of materialism or enjoyment. So that is pointing out the mistake. And then the last para of Srila Prabhupada in the purport, the compromising spirit of Srila Vyasadeva is condemned, where the concept of heaven is being encouraged, and the concept of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is being sacrificed in the process, and that is despicable because that is not real religion. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, enjoying oneself versus selfless service. So, selfless service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual advancement. Enjoying spirit for ourselves is a materialistic activity. So that is being delineated in the verse number 16. And then in verse number 16, it's mentioned as, we'll read the translation. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So here many points are coming out in sloka number 17, where there are certain qualifications of the person who is in the pursuit of the spiritual realization, which is one must be well situated and completely retired from the activities of material happiness, and he is completely does not have any kind of material attachment. He should show the ways for transcendental realization, which are the qualities which you are already having. So therefore, you should be describing the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is this section, which is talking about bhakti as the only valuable asset. This has got a short purport, so we'll just read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of the Lord. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. Only a very expert who has almost retired from materialistic activities by culture of spiritual knowledge can be admitted to the study of this great science. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that out of many hundreds and thousands of men, only one person deserves to enter into the transcendental realization. And out of many thousands of such transcendentally realized persons, only a few can understand the theological science specifically dealing with God as a person. Srila Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Narada to describe the science of God by relating his transcendental activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personality expert in this science, and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it. And Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is the right person to receive it. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medical doses. But because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. Okay, so from the purport, important point is coming out on the complicated nature of spiritual understanding. God is not something which is who is not a person who can be easily understood. How can we, with our finite mind, ever be able to understand the infinite nature and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It is something beyond our perception. Having said that, what has happened to all of us? Because we are reading Srila Prabhupada's books for so many years, and we are understanding God through the eye of the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. And because we have the strength of the parampara, through disciples of Srila Prabhupada, how the parampara is progressing, we are able to engage in conversations with people on the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead and have discussions. This is possible only if you are associating with a person like Srila Vyasadeva and Sukadev Goswami, the son of Srila Vasudeva, who are the right person to receive this knowledge and perceive the knowledge, and then having received, they are the right people to transmit the knowledge to all of us. So this is a very, very important topic. The pure devotee of the Lord and the association, and understanding the scriptures through the authorized parampara. We'll just go through another 3 verses, maybe 17. Yeah, 17 to 19 actually explains the benefit of spiritual benefit of devotional service. So we'll just go through the translations only. One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service may sometimes fall down while in the immature state. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee who is fully engaged in occupational service does not gain anything. Oh my God, this is a nice sloka once again. So a person who may be doing his material occupations perfectly, but he is not a devotee of the Lord, even if he is occupied in his service perfectly does not gain anything. Whereas a devotee of the Lord, if he engages in devotional service and if he still, falls down, still he is not having a danger of being unsuccessful. Two slokas come to my mind from the second chapter, verse number 40 probably. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Neha vikramanaso asti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya thrayate mahato bayat. Even there is no loss or diminution if a person has practiced the process of bhakti for even a short while and falls down. Neha Vikramana Swasti Pratyavayana Vidyate, but still he will be protected from the dangers of material existence. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya, even if he has performed swalpa or little bit of spiritual activity, trayate mahato bayat, he will be taken out from the three fears of material existence, the greatest fears of material existence. And then another sloka which comes to my mind is the chapter number 9, sloka number 30. Can anybody start the verse for me? 9.30. 9.30. What is that? Which is, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhu reva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. So even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in, what is that? Bhajate mam ananya bhak. If he is engaged in the process of bhakti, undeviated devotional service, ananya bhakti, he is to be considered sadhur eva samantavya. We still have to consider him as a sadhu. Samyak vyavasito hisa, because he is properly situated in his determination to achieve the goal. So this is so very important for us to understand, because it really describes the way you get protected by the Lord if you are in the path of bhakti. There will be no danger of being unsuccessful, as is mentioned in this verse. And verse number 18 is, we'll again read the translation of these two verses, 18 and 19, and we'll stop. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet down to the lowest planet, Patala, from Brahmaloka to Pataloka. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. So happiness and distress actually come to us even if without our endeavor also. I mean, this is like a big ego point for people who strive very hard to be successful materially, and they attain a lot of success as well. But if you go and tell him, like, whatever is your success, it's just the result of your karma, he will get completely upset with you. They say, what do you mean? I have done so much effort and I've applied so much of time and energy and intelligence of mine to attain this success. And you're coming and telling me that the success just came to me automatically. So, no doubt we all have to work, but the result is rather automatic based on your past karma. Actually, it is the spiritual progress which requires our effort, and the effort in the direction of bhakti is the most practical and the easiest method as well. It is circled around a very simple process, which is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the real purpose of human life is not obtained even by wandering from Brahmaloka to Pataloka. Again, we immediately can connect to chapter number 8 of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 16, which says, A Brahma Bhavana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetyatu Kaunteya Punar Janma Na Vidyathe. So what's the value of roaming around from Brahmaloka to Pataloka? Because this is continuously increasing the process of birth, death, old age, and disease. What is the final goal of life? Mam upetyatu kaunteya punar janma na vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all are places of misery. Yeah, wherein repeated birth and death takes place. One who has attained my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So that is sloka number 18, and sloka number 19 is explanation of how a devotee does not undergo material existence like others. Lord Krishna pulls him back. This is like an inspirational sloka where he says, my dear Vyasa, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or the other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. Oh, this is also a good end to today's discussions, where if you're in the path of bhakti, Krishna never lets you go. He will always keep you connected. Even we have seen so many devotees who have given up their spiritual life and fallen a prey to Maya, are somehow or the other connected back, because as it's mentioned in this verse, they have relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore they can never forget the ecstasy that they experienced in Krishna consciousness again and again. And Krishna comes and saves them, and at some point of time or the other, they go back to the process of bhakti. Okay, it could be in this lifetime or it could be in the next lifetime, but they are never disconnected from bhakti once they have taken off on the process of bhakti. Krishna is very, very kind in that. So we'll stop here, and we will see in the next class from 20 until 22. There is instructions to Srila Vyasadeva given, and then Narada Muni goes on to narrate his previous life from sloka number 23 to 31, and till from 32 to 40, Narada gives further advice to Srila Vyasadeva. So let's continue in this wonderful journey, and at every point keep absorbing the mood of Krishna consciousness through the life, experience, and behavior of exalted devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, and the three heroes that we discussed, in this chapter other than Srila Vyasadeva, Maharaj Parikshit, and Sukadev Goswami. Hare Krishna to all of you. So if there are any comments or questions, we still have some time to take questions.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
If I just try to kind of summarize today, it's more about trying to tell the importance of actually praying to Lord Krishna, right?
That's right. Yeah. Importance of praying to Lord Krishna in the mood of devotion.
Okay.
So bhakti is the only valuable asset that one can gain in spiritual life. So that is the fundamental core aspect being discussed in this section. And actually that is the core objective and the core aspect in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Now, what you said just now is...
Yeah, it's more about how do we gain that that closeness to, or how do we develop that bhakti so that we are immersed in it is more important, right?
Yeah, that's right. Processes that develop bhakti is the essence of spiritual advancement.
Mm.
You see, that kind of inspires me to add another dimension to it. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are different processes that are explained. This evening, some devotees from Qatar have asked me to speak about the summary of chapter number 5 of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first 6 chapters are considered to be Karma Yoga. The last 6 chapters are considered to be Jnana Yoga. And the middle 6 chapters are the Bhakti Yoga quotient. It's sandwiched between karma and jnana. And within the process of karma yoga, the first 6 sections, the one thing which is being stressed is there is discussion on Sankhya Yoga in this chapter 2. There is discussions on Jnana Yoga as well throughout the flow of the 5 chapters. And then in the 6th yoga, there is discussions on, although part of Jnana Yoga, discussions on Ashtanga Yoga and Dhyana Yoga is there. But ultimately, since it's the portion which is concerning discussions on Karma Yoga, beautifully Krishna says that ultimately Jnana also leads to perfection in Karma Yoga. And dhyana also leads to perfection in Karma Yoga. And then he says that, look, even though the these different forms of yoga are there, the perfection in Karma Yoga is nothing but Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is activity in knowledge, which is none other, not non-different from bhakti. So basically, you will see in the knowledge that we get from Bhagavad Gita, there is a fusion of karma and jnana, and the fusion of karma and jnana is nothing but the process of bhakti. When bhakti is a direct process, so, and since we are fortunate to associate with Srila Prabhupada, let's get into the direct process of bhakti, which gives you jnana and which gives you the benefits of karma yoga also. So bhakti is central to the knowledge of the entire Bhagavad Gita itself. Yep, that was a long explanation.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Any question? Anybody? Okay. So no question, Prabhuji.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so all of
Krishna.
you.